Welcome to Blowing Solutions Wide Open, where we're talking about all things spiritual, as well as creating new systems in the area of healthcare, finance, government, education, new environmental practices, and anything that helps the planet or helps humanity. My name is Addie, and I have an awesome guest that I want to tell you guys about today. His name is Jim Gale, and he's the creator of Food Forest Abundance. The theme of this situation is we grow freedom by growing food. So, Jim, thank you so much for being here. I am thrilled. The little bit that I do know about you, I will say you were, ahead of the game for sure. What you've come up with 20 years ago is something that, now most of us are starting to kind of dip our toe in and realize is just an amazing idea. So, if you want to, you know, tell us what you're doing, tell us what you know, love to hear about it.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Addie. It's a pleasure to be here and chat with you and everybody listening about the solutions to all of it. And I know it, and we know it. What I'm going to share with you and your audience is not just a hypothetical solution to deforestation and mass extinction and cancer and diabetes and heart disease and childhood depression and diabetes and all of those things. It's a proven, demonstrable solution, and we are demonstrating it in a way that inspires a lot of people to do the same. In fact, you know what? I'm going to put these on. It's kind of bright out.
Go
Plus,
for
these
it.
they're Tesla glasses, supposedly not the company, but they help block the blue light, and blue light is one of the worst toxins that people are subjected to all day, every day. Most people, anyway. Um,
Interesting.
so our solutions start with taking the poisons out,
Yeah.
right? Taking the poisons out of our beings, starting with the ultimate poison of fear and humiliation and shame and depression and rage and pride and all of these kind of low frequency, low energy um, ways of being, to first
Absolutely.
recognize that these thoughts and these ways of being are not helping, but they're harming us. And then to step into a frequency of willingness and faith and courage and joy and love, right? That's the first step. Start with just the knowing that we can do something about the problems that we are facing and the problems that the whole world is facing. That's the first step.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you on that. Um, I don't I think it's quite fitting that you address that first.
Yeah.
So, well, tell us how came up with what you're doing. I know you're in Florida. Um, yeah, describe it all because, I, I've had a lot of spiritual downloads recently directing me towards exactly what you're doing. So have
Yeah.
at it.
Okay. Well, it started with what really catalyzed this experience of life is failure and desperation.
Oh,
Yeah, that's what got me here. And I am so thankful for every failure that
absolutely.
led to the desperation. Now, while I was in the midst of it, I was not thankful. I was not okay with it. I was struggling. I was in chaos. A little backstory. So I grew up and I lived on a lake, and my dad was a pipe fitter. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and we had this little house on a nice little tiny lake in Shoreview, Minnesota. And I really, really enjoyed my childhood. And then well, I had struggles like every kid, right? I was a wrestler, and I kept failing at the big matches. I kept failing when it mattered the most. Like, for instance, in my junior year, it was state finals, and I was wrestling Jerry Martin, who we both have the same birthday, Christmas Eve 1969, which is interesting. But anyway, uh, we I had wrestled him 5 times previous, and I had won every time. And now it's the state finals, biggest wrestling match of my life by far, and he wins. And I went through this period of kind of depression and frustration, and I had had my confidence rocked. And then um, I listened to a tape series by Dennis Waitley called The Psychology of Winning. And I listened to that probably 2 dozen times, and it radically changed my viewpoint on what was possible for
Right.
us. It was one of the great original kind of motivational speakers. And then I wrote my goals, and now I'm in college, and my 2 previous years had sucked. And now I wrote my goals, and I ended up being a 4-time All American and national champion in college. I was inducted into the Hall of Fame. And it was because I became aware that I could. And then I started that awareness is the first step in change, right?
Yeah.
It's the awareness that it's possible.
Right.
And what's impossible in the mind of God?
Nothing.
There you go, right?
Nothing. Yeah.
So when I realized that, I started playing these games in my head, and the experience of it, thought, word, deed, led me to the results I got. And then I was feeling kind of proud of myself. Now, pride is an energy field that's much more powerful than humiliation and shame and rage and anger and all that.
Yeah.
But it's below consciousness and willingness and presence.
Yeah.
That's why it's one of the supposedly 7 deadly sins, right? Envy, greed, gluttony, lust, wrath, pride, sloth. And I was living in that energy for a while, and I was very competitive, like hyper competitive of everything I did.
Yeah.
And then I got my ass beat a few times. I moved to Costa Rica, I invested in a restaurant. I mean, I moved to Maui actually, and I invested in this
Oh,
restaurant, lost all my life savings, which wasn't much. It was just money that I'd made bartending and stuff, but it was all I had. And I then worked for a little longer and saved enough money to travel. And I started my backpacking trip by myself. I started in Surfers Paradise, Australia, and
wow.
I got a job as a bartender. I then went to Bond University. By this time, I was, well, after Maui, after losing my money in the bar business in Maui, yeah, I get to Surfers Paradise, and I started studying the greats again, the teachers that have changed so many lives. Everyone you could probably name, like Jim Rohn and Zig Ziglar and Tony Robbins and all these guys. And I started writing my goals again. And when I got home, it was like November of I was 29 years old, and I wrote my goals that I wanted to be retired in 3 years with $3 million, thinking at the time that that was a lot of money, right? And it was back then. I'm 55, so that was a lot back then. So through a series of, I call them divine synchronicities, I ended up getting into business with a guy, a friend from college, the mortgage business. And I had no salary. And if I sold something, if I sold a mortgage, I would get, 1,000 or 2,000 bucks. And anyway, I went through the first 11 months of struggle in that business. And then I started my own company. And within 3.5 years, we did $1.3 billion in gross revenue.
Ooh.
And then I retired shortly after that. I bought a boat, a 42-foot Carver motor yacht, and I lived on the ocean for about 9 months. And I was feeling that same kind of I'm pretty cool feeling, like a little bit a friendly but a little bit arrogant guy. That's where I was at that time in my
Okay.
life. Always super friendly. I loved a good party, and people invited me constantly, and I was talkative and friendly.
Yeah.
But I had this kind of energy that was rooted down, that somehow I was cool because I had made this money. And then I sold the boat, and I was looking for the next thing in life to do as a retired, 35-year-old, and I found Costa Rica. Now, when I was a kid, they called me Nature Boy, and I've always loved nature. And so when I opened the car door in Costa Rica, and by the way, Addie, please feel free to interrupt me if something comes to mind anytime.
No,
Uh,
go for it.
I drove from San Juan del Sur, Nicaragua. I drove to the border, or I got dropped off at the border. Then I got a rental car, and I drove all the way down to Dominical, Costa Rica. And I opened up the car door, and the sound of the jungle blew my mind.
Oh,
I was like, it was like I was home.
yeah.
And then I started investing in real estate there. It started doing really well. It was 2005, six, and the markets were going up like that. And again, I thought I was really cool because everything I had done financially up to that point was a winner. You know, I had the Midas touch or whatever until I didn't. And so, so then it was 2007, and I was sitting at a table with a bunch of expats. And these two guys at the end of the table, in fact, it was a very interesting and eclectic group. My dad was a retired pipe fitter. Sitting next to him was a retired artist, a teacher, a high school teacher, and an artist. And then this homeless guy, and then a retired New York cop, a drug runner, and a retired CIA agent, and another gal who sold marijuana on the streets. And so all of us are sitting there talking. And the guys at the end of the table said, Jim, don't you know that this whole system is built in deception? It's a conspiracy. I'm like, no, it's not. And they said, yes, 9/11 was an inside job. And I went, you're effing crazy. I said, there's no way that that can be true, because if it were true, we would know about it. That many people can't keep a secret. Now, at the time, I had no idea about compartmentalization. I had no idea that the CIA and that the Black Rocks of the world and that all of
Yeah.
the media and everything was controlled. I had no idea that our news was simply propaganda. And so they said, go watch Zeitgeist. And I did. And my intention, while I was laughing at their ignorance, was to prove them wrong. And so I watched this movie, the show about Building 7 falling into its own footprint at free fall speed, a building the size of a city block that did not get hit by a plane the same day. And I watched all of the testimonies of demolition people and the people who heard all the facts of the matter, the architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth, and the firefighters, and all these people came together saying that it was truly a demolition. I'm like, I went into a period of scarcity at that moment, partly amazed and a little bit like, wow, this is something that I couldn't even conceive of
Yeah.
2 hours ago. And now there's enough information for me to want to study more.
Yep.
And for about 2 years, my intention was to find some magic level of awareness that would allow me to say these guys were wrong and that that was not true. But internally, I knew it was true.
Right.
So I studied and studied. And while I was studying, I was starting to recognize the patterns. I've got a master's in neurolinguistics as well. So I'm very good at recognizing patterns. And I realized beyond any shadow of a doubt that we are using our Earth's resources at a way that is radically destructive and toxic and unsustainable.
Absolutely.
And all unsustainable systems fail.
Yes.
And I had two daughters at the time. Now I have four daughters. Well, I was scared because the way that I recognized the use of the resources and the destruction of our natural world, I started realizing that unless we make changes,
Hmm.
I won't have grandkids.
Yeah. You're absolutely right.
And that put me into a 2 year period of pretty significant scarcity where 12 hours a day I was studying the problem, and then I was starting to integrate in the question, what's the solution?
Right.
And while studying the problem, maybe some people clued me off. I don't remember real specifically. I just typically, and in my nature, I'm an optimist.
Hmm.
So I was going through this period of pessimism, and I was starting to invest my money. I had a net worth of about 20 million at that time. And I was starting to invest every bit I had, well, everything I could imagine, into this idea of there has to be a solution,
Yeah.
right? And I read Viktor Frankl. He said there's one thing strong. No, Victor Hugo. He said there's one thing stronger than all of the armies of the world, and that is an idea whose time has come.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
At about the same time now, this is about 2008, I heard of this idea, this science of permaculture. Permaculture is an agricultural design science that is all about mimicking nature and our natural system, seeing what works in nature and then replicating that, observing and interacting and taking feedback and working the edges and incorporating the pieces that are normally cast aside as trash.
Right.
I started seeing that there was a solution and it was already very well defined. In
Yeah.
fact, the ethics of permaculture are so radically simple. They are people care, earth care, and reinvesting our surplus to people care and earth care.
Easy.
Then I read Bill Molson's famous quote. He said, "Those who no," he said, and I was thinking about Dr. Martin Luther King. He said, "Though the problems of our world are increasingly complex, the solutions remain embarrassingly simple."
I like that.
Yes, and I started to sob. And at that moment, I decided with every bit of my being that I was going to focus on the solutions
Yeah.
for the rest of my life. And this point seems relevant right now. I also read the Dr. Martin Luther King concept on a plaque one day, and it was a miraculous synchronicity that it came to me. He said, "Those who love peace must learn to organize as effectively as those who love war."
Right.
And then the question is, organize around what? Right? The war on drugs, the war on illness, the war on cancer, the war.
No.
No.
No. No.
Those things have led us to where we are now, which is war and suffering and cancer and illness, right?
Well, they create problems that they can sell us to solutions to. So that's all that is.
You absolutely nailed it, Abby. And so then I started really diving into the science of permaculture, and I started a community in Costa Rica, in the mountains of southern Costa Rica, called Osa Mountain Village. And this community was written up in the New York Times. We had the first thing we did was we bought out a fruit tree nursery, and we started planting food producing plants all over our community. And now it's about 2011 and 2012. I had already spent and invested the majority of my money in a couple other developments. One was the golf course project that completely failed due to criminal behavior on the part of other people who are in trouble now. In fact, the main guy died, I think, of cancer because of the trauma that he was inflicting on himself and others. But anyway, I had this piece of land up in the mountains and some good friends as partners and investors. And I said, okay, let's do something different. Now, the real estate market had already completely collapsed in Costa Rica. There was a Coldwell banker in the area with a whole bunch of realtors. And between all of their realtors, they had one sale in 6 months.
Oh, jeez.
That's how bad it was.
Yeah.
So we decided, Buckminster Fuller laid this concept out so great in his words. He said, "You cannot change things by fighting the existing reality.
Absolutely.
Instead, create a new model that makes the current model obsolete." And so I've always loved this idea of reframing that NLP teaches. Take the same thing and put a new frame around it that speaks to what the actual problem is, and turn the problem into the solution, which is also a permaculture principle.
Yeah.
Turn the problem into the solution. So the problem was people are scared of the collapse of society. People are
Yes.
scared of the collapse of all these things. People are suffering in all these ways. So let's create a community here that solves that problem.
Yeah.
So within about a year and a half, we went through the government process, which was cumbersome and ridiculous and criminal, quite frankly. And
Yeah.
we learned how criminal very soon after this.
So
And
criminal. So
so,
criminal.
and so we started developing, and we became either the first or second most successful development in the country out of 1,000 developers within 2 years.
Wow.
And that's when the government came after us to extort us.
And this was in
2012.
was this in Costa Rica or was this
This
okay.
is Costa Rica.
Okay.
2012, we get a knock on the door through my partner, Jonathan Duran, who's a great guy, still a good friend to this day. And he's a local guy. And this guy knocked on his, I wish I could remember his name. But anyway, he said, hey, give us $20,000 and we won't shut you down. Now, this is the Costa Rican entity that is supposed to protect the environment. And so we had meetings with our main people, our main developers, the main investor group, and I was scared. Because I'd never had that kind of direct extortion threat in my life. And I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen? It was 2012 and we're rocking. Like we're building, we have
Right.
all buyers coming in and everybody's happy as shit, by the way. We were like having a blast. We were having parties at the community center. All these things were just, it was absolutely beautiful. We had the second longest Superman line in the world, the second longest water slide in the world, which should have never been opened. That thing was a dangerous thing. We actually closed it. We had a canopy tour. We had an animal rescue center. We had a butterfly garden. I mean, it was epic. And it's still there, by the way, Toucan Valley and Osa Mountain Village. It's just dead now, and I'll get into that. But I really want to get to the main solutions. So I'm going to kind of fast forward through part of this. Anyway, we didn't pay them. They shut us down. We took them to court. According to a court-appointed actuary, we are owed $28 million. And someday I intend to get that money for everybody who put money in, every investor who put money in. I'm going to get it now, though, not through going through their legal system, which is just a bunch of malarkey.
They're
It's
all linked. They're all, yeah.
Here's how bad they are. They all said, yes, you're going to get this. The actuary said you're owed 28 million. I said, okay, then we'll give you half of the 28 million if you just do the court proceedings, if you just do it, right? You've got the manpower. It was one of the biggest legal firms in the country. And they said, no, you got to pay us 250 grand up front. Like, wait a minute. You're going to say no to $14 million over 250 grand? There's something wrong here.
Yeah.
What they're trying to do, they can't win the money, or at least they didn't believe they could. And since they didn't believe it, we didn't pay the 250 grand, and it still sits there to this day. So, to the president of Costa Rica, by the way, I heard you're a good man, and I'd love to chat with you about resolving this issue. So anyway, so then I lost a lot of money. I had just enough. I'd sold this last house that I had, and we had just enough. And I got down on a knee, and I begged my wife, who had never left Costa Rica besides to visit me from time to time before we got completely, married and living together. And I got down on a knee and I begged her. I said, we have to go back to the United States. I can't work here. Everything I try to do, the government comes in and shuts it down or stops it, or it's just the inefficiencies are radical. And she finally said yes. So we moved here in 2016. Now, I guess that's 9 years ago. And we moved to Central Florida for a lot of good reasons, having to do with our kids and the proximity to Costa Rica. And I still had the same desire, the same vision.
Yeah.
And good friends were here. Brian and Christy, they have a girl that was best friends with or is one of my daughter's best friends as well. So that's one of the reasons we moved here. And anyway, our goal was to buy a piece of land within 40 minutes to an hour of the Orlando International Airport, where Brian could have his runway because he's a pilot. We could have a lake, and we could have at least 20 or 30 acres to build 4 or 5 homes for ourselves and our future family. And at the time, I didn't have any money. So I said, okay, buddy, here's what I'll do. He had money. I said, I'll put together the vision. I'll do all the work. And what I would like is one of the 10 lots in the community that we build. And he said, great. So that's what I did. And when I started speaking about our goals for the land to the local developers and local realtors, I said, here's what we're looking for. And we have the money, we're ready to go. And he had the money. I was pretty much broke. And every realtor, every developer we talked to said that doesn't exist. You have to go hours away. We don't even know where to find a runway and a lake and the things you want. And so I get a call about 2 weeks later, and this guy calls me up. His name is Bob Whidden, great guy. And he said, Jim, I can't believe it, but something just came up that you might be interested in. And that is now where we're living. It's called Galt's Landing, after John Galt from Atlas Shrugged.
Okay.
We are living 100% off the grid, and I'll do a quick, tiny little tour here. This is our homestead. I'll just show you inside. One of my wife's sitting at the table, but hey, baby, I'm on a podcast, so.
Hi.
This is our kitchen, which we're turning into a studio.
Gorgeous.
This whole area we're turning into a studio to demonstrate freedom on every conceivable level. And then this is our food forest. It's a baby. All right. We also have more mature food forests over there. But we just started getting this put into the ground because we just ended the construction phase. In fact, would you like me to go through some of the plants that are in our food forest?
I'd love it. And if we run out of time, would you be willing to come back on another one?
Absolutely. How much time might we have?
I think, well, it's not showing me right now, but I think well, we have at least 10 minutes, so keep going.
Okay. I'm going to kind of do a speed through of some of the things. We've got about 40 different food producing plants, bananas and sugar cane and avocados and 3 types of cherries and guavas and mangoes and longans and turmeric and aloe and papaya and dragon fruit and anyway, a bunch more.
So fun.
Yeah. And by the way, this can be done in every zone with different plants. There's thousands of food producing plants in every zone from Minnesota to Costa Rica. They're just different because they have to adapt to that environment. So now I'm just going to skip ahead of all that, and I'm going to go right to the solutions that we are demonstrating here. Mm-hmm. First of all, we did not ask for permission to build our family homestead because we recognize that the government has lost its moral authority.
Yep.
And the government and BlackRock and the so-called elites and the corporations, it's all one thing.
Yes.
And so we cannot comply with evil. Once I learned about faith and courage, I was dead broke 5 years ago. I mean, this is a scary time. I finally stepped into faith and courage and humility and willingness. And then it's just been epic ever since then.
Amazing.
Yeah. So this is our off-grid homestead. A government agent came here 2 years ago to see building permits. And it's a long story, but I'm going to summarize it. He left about 20 minutes later. He had tears in his eyes, and he said, "You're right. Yeah. We will never bother you again."
Is this a known government person?
It's our local government.
Oh, your local? Okay, good.
Permit and inspection team for the Osceola County local government.
Right. Wow.
And we don't pay taxes, and we will not ask for permission. Instead, we will voluntarily serve our community.
Yeah.
And how do we do that? We've just opened up a school about 3-4 weeks ago.
I saw that.
The school is epic.
Oh.
The kids, every single day, they don't want school to be over. Oh. The kids go out into the yard and plant food almost every day. The kids created their own mosquito spray, natural mosquito spray, their own essential oil calming balm, their own lotion. Oh. And kids, as a result of the action of these kiddos putting food in the ground and planting seeds and being the stewards of the land, we create epic abundance, and the abundance goes to students and their families.
Wow.
And then we actually bring the surplus to a local retailer and we create a local supply chain where the school, which in Florida, because $8,000 to $10,000 follows the student if it's a private school like this school only costs a couple $100 for the parents
Mhm.
a month.
Yeah.
And the result is food that is worth way more than a couple $100 a month.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, how cool is that? Right?
It's perfect.
And it's replicable all over the world. So now, with all of the different things coming in, and it's growing. We had 6 kids here last week. We had a couple that couldn't make it in the school because their parents were trying to do some funny business with the money system. So they didn't make it. But now we've got all these other students coming back in, and we're going to have 20, 25 students probably by October. We've got like 15 now. And as a result of every day these students planting seeds and doing these little things, in which building soil, by the way, is one of the things they're learning. They're also learning
Cool.
entrepreneurship and biology, and they're learning all of the most important things that kids could ever learn. They spend,
Exactly.
right? They spend 45 minutes a day online. The rest of the time, they're playing creatively and with some structure and sometimes without structure,
Yeah.
and they're creating abundance. Isn't that epic?
It's amazing. It's just what we need. It's just what we need to move forward
It
and
is.
change. And I've listened to enough people and received enough of my own intuitive information to know that the way forward is this. It's literally creating your own new world. We were never going to get there fighting. We just simply, you know, I don't know if you have anybody like living near your land,
Oh
but
yeah,
okay. So I feel like, groups of people starting to live near each other, but it is important that, the vibrations are pretty similar, I
yeah,
think.
it is
Um,
very important.
I really feel like that's where it's at. Like if we can start mimicking nature, which
Yeah,
nature helps each other out. Like it,
all wealth is derived from nature.
oh,
And this is literally a free energy system. And by the way, I didn't even share you. We live on a private 430-acre lake, and we have
nice.
a mile-long paved runway that borders the east of our property.
Wow.
So world leaders will be flying in here to have conferences and to learn about freedom.
Good.
Yes, freedom comes from back to the idea of nature and stewardship and creating abundance and then sharing the surplus. And then we also have a feature film coming out here soon called The New Dawn. It's going to be a complete global game changer that integrates the kind of the conflict of the military industrial conflict
Mhm.
or military industrial thing with stewardship and solutions in a way where the good wins because
Yes.
everybody wins when the good wins.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
true. No, you're
Yeah.
right about that.
Yep.
So, when you say world leaders, are you speaking of like anyone that wants to step up, or are you speaking of the ones that are currently here that are ready to change?
We are inviting everybody. And that's why they're not bothering us. They're censoring the heck out of us. But
Yeah,
they're bothering.
everyone.
If they do, then this message goes faster. That's my insurance policy.
Oh,
So I met with Bobby Kenedy. We had a
yay.
on chat, him and I on a couch, talking about, and I laid out the Maha strategy for him 2 years ago in great detail, which integrated the schools, the prisons, which will reduce the majority of crime. It's a fact. It's been done. The city parks, which will feed everybody in the city and
Hmm.
the communities, and then inviting the churches and the corporations to do better.
Yeah.
And when from a position that big, in fact, we've created a campaign strategy that it's now open source. And we've got a fellow running for governor of Texas that loves this. And we're going to be meeting over the next couple of days to really get it going.
Wow, that's something I have not heard of is actually getting the current leaders to change their ways. I don't think all of them will, um,
The
but
smart one.
I know RFK will. I mean, he was always well intended, but um, you
The
know,
smart the
the
smart
smart,
one,
yeah,
because the rest of them, they're really in a bad way.
yeah,
And driven by trauma and scarcity,
Yep.
and we invite them to heal their trauma
Right.
and start doing good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Wow, this is amazing. So if somebody, you know, really wants, and I'm talking about myself too, really wants to learn more, and get involved with you, how can they do that? I'm gonna definitely put your information in the description, but
So start with we have a couple websites. One is a not-for-profit called originsreclaimed.org.
okay.
And everything I do is open source. I don't do NDAs or any of that bullshit. No legal stuff. It's all about transparent and open source serving. And by the way, the reciprocation has been epic. So it's the most selfish thing I could ever do is help as many people as I possibly can. So the other website is called foodforestabundance.com.
Okay. I saw that one. And we have only a couple minutes, but keep going.
So, yes, so we're here to invite everybody to organize effectively and build the new model together wherever you are. People say, how can I help? The first way you can help is to rise your energy up, take out
Yes.
the poisons, and start planting seeds of awareness and seeds in the soil. Start building life. Take out the poisons and start putting life back into your surroundings.
Yeah.
That's number one. And then from there, it's limitless what we can do together.
Yeah. Yeah. The collaboration is key. Oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad for what you're doing. Come back anytime. I know you're a busy guy, but I really appreciate you sharing your information. I appreciate your good energy and your amazing ideas. And I can't say enough.
Oh,
Really.
thank you, Addie. It's a pleasure to chat with you. And yes, anybody can reach out to us. We're easy to get a hold of, and I would love to chat with you again
Yeah.
sometime. And when this is ready, please send me the link. I'd like to share this with my team.
I will definitely send you the link and I will personally be in touch. So thanks for coming on.